Hello, everybody. Bob Chick back with another edition of The Voice of Bodybuilding. I know we've been off for a little bit of a hiatus, but we have been revamping some things here. We'll be coming to you a lot more now, multiple times during the week, as there are a lot of things unfolding in the bodybuilding world, but bigger and better, and that's the way we want it. Brought to you now by Redcon One, Aaron Singerman and our crew over at Redcon signing on. So expect a lot of changes here that I think you're going to like. And presented by Panatta. That's our good friends out of Italy. Panatta Sports Equipment, the best and the finest gym equipment in the world. For anybody that's out there looking for some equipment, you can hit me up on IG. I'll get you set up and tightened up with the boys. I actually just got back from Italy. I did an entire tour that they flew me out, and we looked at the facility and the plant. It's literally in a small town called Apiro in the middle of Italy. And it's all up on top of a mountain. And we'll get into that some other time. We've got some other things to cover today. But I've got footage of the actual facility itself. They make all the equipment right there on hand, right in the facility. It's the most impressive thing you've ever seen. And we'll cover that in a future episode. But I'd like to welcome Redcon One and Panatta to the podcast, and we've got to get right into the business. We just got back from the Arnold Classic, 35th year being celebrated in Columbus. And big shout out to Brian Powers, David Bay, the entire staff over at the Arnold for an excellent job once again putting this competition on. And the expo was in full force. It was jam-packed for anybody that was there on Friday, especially Saturday. You couldn't even move in this place. So it's great to see things back where they were before COVID hit and all that. So a lot of speculation whether they're staying or going. I've heard the same things you guys have, that they're not going to stay in Columbus. They're going to move to the West Coast. It's going to be in Vegas, going to be in LA. I have no idea. I haven't heard anything that would take me to believe that they are not going to be there. And I can absolutely make a case for why they would want to move. So if any information comes my way, I will certainly keep you guys posted on that. But as of right now, I would think they've got a great infrastructure there and a long history. Big shout out to Jim Lorimer. Was looking down from above. We lost Jim at 90-something years old just this past year or so. I know he was probably looking down, smiling, probably telling us to get the show going, because that's just the kind of guy that he was. Speaking of the Arnold Classic, a lot of speculation. As we know, Samson Dauda gets the big win, puts it in his back pocket, instantly becomes a co-share of the number one contender. You got to give Derek Lunsford his due, as he was the runner-up at the Olympia. So we can't give him full share, but he's going to share that with Derek as he prepares for the Olympia this year. But I want to address something right off the bat that's put out there on some of the other podcasts, most notably our good friend Nick Trigili, putting out his Bodybuilding and BS podcast. And listen, for the most part, I like Nick and what he puts out. I think it's entertaining. He's certainly entitled to his opinion. But, Nick, you haven't learned one thing from last year, my friend. It was 1 year ago today. If you look up on YouTube, you can look up past VOBs, that I had to call you out because you put up the score sheet and you wanted to allege that there was some sort of a conspiracy or something that didn't look right and all that. And I actually went out and I explained it to you and everybody else that's watching as to why you were incorrect in your assessment. Well, unfortunately, you either have a memory that's not serving you, or you can look up your own podcast from last year in my response. All right, so Nick addresses this in his podcast, so we're going to roll the tape now, and then we'll address it on the way back.
So, these scorecards, the official scorecards from the Arnold Classic. Like I told you guys a moment ago, Samson had a perfect score going into finals after prejudging. Nick never led in this show at one point at all. Every judge had straight ones for Samson. Now remember, they drop the highest and the lowest score, and they keep 5. There's 7 judges, 7 scores. And that hopefully removes any, shady business going on. These scorecards still look shady to me. Something doesn't add up to me how they got Samson winning with a perfect score when he wasn't even perfect at prejudging. And he was clearly beat by some people in this show like Andrew and Nick.
All right, so as you can see, he makes a bunch of assessments here that literally just aren't true. First of all, for those interested, the judging criteria is based on a placement system. That means you get a number that's based on the placing they think you're in. If you're in second place, you get a 2. If you're in fourth place, you get a 4, and so on and so forth. Number two, there's not 7 judges, Nick. Once again, we just did this last year, bro. There's more than 7 judges at the big shows, and they don't cut out a high and a low. They cut out 2 highs and 2 lows. This makes your math completely irrelevant to what you're trying to achieve here. At the end of the day, it's the judge's opinion that counts. The points, and if you even look at the point, even if I take you for what you originally had, which was wrong, you still don't have it right. Because Samson Dauda was never winning with cross-the-board ones. Okay, that's number one. This was not a case that we had. It was across the board. It was unanimous. That's just simply not the case. I do believe Samson was winning from the prejudging, from the onset. I had him winning. I thought it was pretty much, 1, 2, 3. Him, Nick, and Andrew Jack were all battling from the start. I think anybody could see that. Rami was maybe a little bit improved from the Olympia, but still off. We'll get into that in a moment. But there weren't 7 judges, 2 highs and 2 lows. You say that you think Nick won every pose against Samson, not every pose, but most of the poses. I completely disagree, and here's why. Samson comes out, and he dominates right off the bat because he has a superior physique. Size, symmetry, shape, and proportion. Those are the first thing that the judges are looking at. That's why we do the quarter turns, much to Milos Sarchev's chagrin. Okay, there is a round that we do that, and that is the first round of every competition in the Pro League. The guys do the quarter turns. Big Steve took them through quarter turn, quarter turn, quarter turn. They are assessing your shape, symmetry, proportion. Okay, all those factors get rolled into that. They are judging it. Do they get an actual score for it? The answer is no. Okay, it's all being assessed because they are making an opinion based on what they see throughout these rounds. Okay, pose for pose. Nick is already behind because Samson has superior, much superior, shape, proportion, and symmetry. Okay, Samson's near perfect. Actually, somebody had a great shot of him next to the great Lee Haney, standing in there basically in Lee's prime and the current Samson Dauda. Nick actually compares very favorably, very similar physique to Lee Haney. The next point you make is that at the Olympia, how can it be that Samson was 6th and Nick was 3rd? First of all, that was 3 months ago. I mean, what are we talking about here? Different show, different place, different lighting, different judges, and most importantly, different physiques. It doesn't mean they did not bring the same physique. First of all, Nick brought it down way too much, in my opinion. I think he lost some of that freak factor. Nick is not the most symmetrically gifted. I think he's the first one to tell you that. He's very much Branch Warren 2.0, where he's got a lot of muscle. He comes in great, grainy, and gnarly condition, and that's what he brings to the table. I know he was trying to streamline it, but he doesn't have that kind of physique that you're going to streamline. It's going to do better. I think if you take comparison when he won the other year, all right, to this product that he put out at this show, you're going to see he looked better the other year when he won it. He brought it down too much. He lost some of that roundness, some of that freak factor, still in great condition. But he did not compare to Samson when it came to those qualities. Pose for pose, he's already behind because he doesn't beat Samson in any of those attributes. Muscularity, yes, he can hang with anybody, but Nick is a little long-waisted and short-legged. He lost some of the legs because he trimmed it down, and it makes his legs look like they're a little bit weak in comparison to his upper body. His upper body's tremendous. I mean, you can't get around that. Some of the best arms in the business right now, currently, but that's only half the battle. The other assessment that I've heard, and this isn't against you in particular, Nick, but some other podcasters, is that shows are won from the back. This is the worst saying ever in the history of bodybuilding, as I pointed out many, many times. If shows can be won from the back, then they can be lost from the front. And from the front, there's no comparison. Samson dusts everybody. Personally, I got Andrew Jack in second, and I'll tell you why. Andrew Jack is closer to Samson in terms of physique, height, weight, proportion, symmetry, all that good stuff. Tremendous physique. He looked great. At the end of the day, I would have had him as runner-up. Nick, I would have had him a solid 3rd, but honestly, he's closer to 4th than he is to 1st. I know some of you don't want to hear that, but I'm purely looking at things objectively. I don't have a horse in this race. I am very much a fan of Samson Dauda because of the physique that he brings, and I don't think Jack is too far behind. This guy is a tremendous talent. All he has to do is thicken up from the side a little bit, and work on some of his poses. I think he could present his posing a little bit better. If you're going to present your physique, you got to do it at the highest level against these guys. But everybody can use a little bit of something. But I would have had him in second place. I would have had Nick in third, and the rest I thought was pretty much spot on. But Nick being closer to Rami in fourth, listen, Rami was tremendous. But Rami has actually gotten, hate to say it, and I hate to use the phrase, too big. And he's lost his shape a little bit. If you look at Rami when he won the New York Pro years ago, you're going to see a much better looking physique in terms of overall balance. He's as muscular as they get. Again, personally, and again, nothing against Nick, I had Rami winning the most muscular. I don't know how he doesn't win that at 300 pounds on stage, and he was in shape. He doesn't have the best shape. The thighs overpower the lower legs a little bit. The waist is a little thicker than it used to be. Still got some of the same issues that he had at the Olympia. I think what Rami needs right now is some good time off. If I was to give him my advices into his camp, I wouldn't see Rami in the rest of 2023. Maybe we see him in 2024 later in the year. I know he's been doing some stem cell and some other treatment to try to get his back to respond better, and his triceps in particular. The legs had some problems at the Olympia that we saw. You need time off. He's been going at it for years now. Probably needs a good break if he's going to come back. William Bonac in that same vein. Not a stellar finish here. We've seen better from Bonac. He needs a rest. At the Sunday seminar that we did with Arnold, Nick said he's taking the rest of the year off. You will not see him until next year's Arnold Classic. So, Samson at 100%. 100%. Now, we haven't seen him at 100%. I actually predicted in the Olympia TV previews that we did, I predicted that Nick would win the Arnold. Now, why did I do that? Because Nick has proven himself to be consistent. And I said, Samson has a superior physique. I also said, if Samson comes in 100%, it's over. He wins the show hands down. Well, he wasn't 100%, but he was damn close. Much improved over the Olympia. He's got to keep bringing it down a little bit. This conditioning was great, all right? But it wasn't that great. It was good enough, great enough to win this Arnold and get this title in his hand, and more importantly, $300,000 in his pocket as the purse was bumped up this year. So what's Samson got to do this year? He is a number one contender along with Derek Lunsford. Derek Lunsford took second in the Olympia. Unbelievable. Great physique. A lot of the same attributes Samson has, except Samson's about, 50 pounds heavier than Derek is. Samson looks like a Mr. Olympia contender. And I'm going to say this right now. You talk about your early predictions. I'm going to give you one right now. If next year's Olympia comes, or this year's, I should say, and Samson nails it, close to 100%, he's going to win the Olympia. You might be looking at your next Mr. Olympia right there because he has all those attributes I named. He's a head taller than Hottie, and then all the rest of the guys that are going to be out there. Now, there was a few names absent from the Arnold that we have to take note because of the next guy that I'm going to bring up, which is the giant killer, Sean Clarita. We didn't have a Hottie Chupan. We didn't have Derek Lunsford, and most notably, we didn't have Brandon Curry. Those are three top Olympians that were not in the Arnold. Why do I bring this up? I think if Samson was in their same conditioning and all those guys are in, Samson potentially still beats them. Now, I have to say potential because you have to see it unfold. There is something actually being there. Nick Trigili, I will point out to you, the first words out of your mouth in your podcast was, I wasn't there, but that's a big consideration, okay? Watching on TV, watching on the pay-per-view, watching on the big screen from the 15th row is all different. It's a whole different show when you're watching on TV than when you are there. That's why the judges are there. Albeit, I would like to see the judges closer to the stage. That's something I will bring up, at least with my opinion, to the powers that be. At the Arnold, the way the setup is, the judges are a little bit far back, and it's very difficult to judge properly when you're, 40 feet back from the stage. So I'd like to see that gap close. They generally like 15 to 20 feet between where the judges are and where the competitors are standing. I think just a little bit of redesign would be the best of both worlds, but we'll get into that another time. The giant killer, you got to give this kid credit, man. I mean, what can you say about a guy who's literally giving up 100 pounds to Big Rami, Jack, and Samson? 100. Think about that, everybody. That's the difference between going to the Nationals and seeing a bantamweight or a lightweight stand next to the super heavyweight. And it usually doesn't go the other way. But Clarida is so outstanding in his physique that he could actually stand there, and he went toe-to-toe with these guys. Now, unfortunately for his counterpart, Kamel Elgarni, another former 212 Olympia champ, he doesn't have the kind of physique that Samson has. He doesn't have those proportions and those extreme X-frame shoulders to waist to thighs ratio, and it hurt him because Kamal looked very small out there and misplaced. Now, the reason I bring this up is that there was some speculation from one of the other podcasts. I don't actually remember which one, or I would actually name them. And it's nothing against them. It's just their opinion. But the speculation was, we need to take the 212 out. The 212 needs to be eliminated. This is not a good idea, okay? It was put in for a very specific reason, and that was to give guys who aren't 270 pounds, 250 pounds, 280 pounds, an equal and level playing field to display their physique and be competitive, okay? Don't use Sean Clarida as your example when he's the one exception to the rule. Now, we don't put Derek in there. Guys need to be able to grow out of a class or a division, as it would be, whichever it applies, into the next category. Derek Lunsford's a great example of this. Derek has a much bigger frame than Sean. He's a much bigger person. He's not tall, but he's extremely wide. He's got a beautiful X-frame. That's why he took second place at the Olympia. But he can put on that weight, not sacrifice the waist, and become a better bodybuilder. Sean Clarida at 180 pounds is pretty much maxed out because his frame can only hold so much muscle. Now, it's a beautiful physique, and he may go on and, listen, potentially he could challenge a Flex Lewis with his 7 212 Olympia championships. We don't know. But his future is not in the open. But he is my quintessential example of why it doesn't make any sense to eliminate the 212. Think about this. The giant killer himself, with his exceptional physique, and it is exceptional, okay? 212 current Olympia champion, took 5th place at the Arnold. Now, we give him all the credit in the world. He held his own. He beat some giants. He got beat by some giants. But he took 5th. Let's keep this in perspective. And that's without the 3 guys I just mentioned earlier, Hottie, Derek Lunsford, and Brandon Curry. None of those guys were there. If they were there, he isn't 5th. He's 9th because he wouldn't have beaten any of those guys. That's with all due respect, of course. 9th place is not really what he's looking for. Is that competitive? Sure. Listen, still in the top 10, still beating some big names out there. But it only proves exactly my point and my premise, which is the 212 not only has a home, but it serves a great purpose to those that would never have had careers, at least not the kind that you've seen. There's guys who have literally made their entire bodybuilding career because of the 212, like Jose Raymond, like Guy Cisternino, like Flex Lewis, and take any of the current champs that are there now battling it out. Guy Cisternino would have had no career if there wasn't a 212. And he did exceptionally well. He won a whole bunch of shows, qualified himself and competed in a whole bunch of Olympias, was very respectful in his career. If Guy Cisternino has to compete in the open from the get-go, he does a show or two, gets buried into the last call-out, you never see him again. Flex Lewis, obviously another exceptional bodybuilder, there's a reason he won 7. Would have fared a little bit better, but where does he finish in the open? Well, maybe he would have been decent. But decent's a far cry from being a 7-time Olympia champion and being a part of history. This has led to complete careers being made. I'm talking sponsors, money, opportunities, guest postings, gym openings. Flex now has a great gym in his Dragon's Lair. People literally come from all over. It's becoming another destination spot like Gold's Venice, another Mecca. Like Steve's gym, like Bev's gym in New York, the East Coast Mecca, okay? Like Oxygen Gym if you're overseas. These are destination spots that people will literally go out of their way to go train at. So it does have a purpose. No, we don't need to get rid of it. We actually need to champion it and try to get it back in shows like the Arnold. I would love to see the 212 returning. And I think that would be a great thing to have when it comes to giving opportunity to athletes. I'd like to see all the divisions return. Now that gets into other things we're not going to get into at this particular podcast about, return on investment, different things like that. What does it cost versus what does it bring in? Logistics in terms of time. These are all things that you have to look at when it comes to assessing what you want at your show. And listen, even though the Arnold's the Arnold, and Arnold is obviously the ultimate promoter of the show, he has a whole staff of people that work with this stuff. It's up to them, really, what they do with all these type of things. They don't have to have any of the events. If they just want an open and classic, good for them. They can do that. Speaking of classic and moving on, hope that clears up anything about the judging process. Okay, Nick, get a new abacus. Okay, you're way off with your numbers. That's not the way it works, my brother. Okay, so it's all based on a placement system. For the most part, I think the judges had it right. And again, for the record, I had Samson, jacked, and I'm sorry. So I had Samson, jacked, Nick, and then I honestly could have gone either way between Big Grommy and the Giant Killer. Take your pick there. Then you go from there. The rest of the order, again, was okay. Akeem, Bonac, Justin, Kamal, and Patrick, all rounding that out. The Classic saw a return of Ramon Dino, who, again, everybody, listen, he was the favorite. Bumstead's not there. Hard-pressed to beat Dino, but he was pushed because Urs is not far behind, and I contend right now, much as I love Ramon, okay, now we're pushing the Ramon Bumstead thing, okay, but except for one thing, Ramon has never beaten Bumstead, so it's not really a rivalry. I got to tell you today that I think Urs is a bigger threat to take over, potentially either beat Bumstead or just take over if Chris decides to retire at some point, than Ramon. He's got a closer physique to Chris's. He's put together a little bit better. And the kid's only like 23, 24 years old. So imagine the future he's got. Big shout out to Alex taking third in the Classic. I'll tell you what, man, he's almost double some of these guys' age in terms of Urs. He is. And Alex Cambronero just simply came there. Beautiful physique, great presentation, rewarded with a third place finish. And Mike Sommerfeld, also from Germany, got the German contingent coming on here with Urs and Mike. Another great finish, beautiful year for him. What a great start to his young career. Other winners, Laura Lee, two-time winner now in bikini. That's significant because she beat the incumbent champ, Maureen Blanquisco, who just won the Olympia, just defeated Laura Lee and the other ones. And the other ones being former Olympians on there with Ashley Kaltwasser, with Jen Dory. At any point, you've got 2 or 3 Olympians on stage battling each other. And now you got to throw Laura Lee in the mix as the number one contender, at least, to this year's Olympia. Ariel Kadar makes it 2 in a row. No surprise there. Simply the best in fitness on stage that day. Harold Kelly. What more can you say about Harold Kelly? King Kong Kelly makes it 6. 6 Arnold Classic championships to go with his 5 Olympia championships. He's the most winningest bodybuilder in wheelchair history. Shows no signs of slowing down at all. And he was simply just head and shoulders above the rest. No competition for him as good as the competition was. Big hats off to Nick Scott, the Beast, for putting it all together, being the wheelchair chairman. You guys represented. You rocked the house to a full packed up house that we had at the Arnold, so well done. And Aaron Banks makes it 2 in a row. Not only has he won 2 Arnolds in a row, but he's also the Olympia champ. So I don't know who's going to beat this guy, but I tell you what, he is very, very well put together. Tall, wide shoulders, small waist, flaring thighs. He could be the champ for a while unless somebody else comes out of the woodwork or comes back, because we have heard that Jeremy Buendia is planning a comeback this year. That will be real interesting to see how it unfolds. So that's going to wrap things up here for another edition of Voice of Bodybuilding. If anybody's got any questions, please hit me up throughout the week. Again, we're going to be coming back 2-3 times a week consistently now. We've got a new format. We've got some new equipment coming in. I'm going to fill you guys in. Speaking of equipment, I've got $100,000 worth of Panada equipment that's going to be delivered to my house sometime in this next month. So we're going to keep you guys privy to all that information coming up. I don't know where we're going to put it yet, but I guess that'll make for an interesting podcast. So we're going to have training videos. I'm going to be giving you guys some advices from the old school. We're going to be covering history of bodybuilding, modern bodybuilding, and of course, all my observations every week. Also, we're going to be doing a live every week, folks. So if you got questions, I'll be able to answer them in real time. I love doing the lives with you guys. So keep those questions coming. Hit me up on Instagram at IFBB Pro Bob Chick, and we'll see you guys next time.